I'm Troy Stetina. This is Melodic Guitar Volume 1, Solo 2 to the stage. So first of all, it's in the key of G, so we take our A minor pentatonic shape from A and we slide it down 2 frets. We also are going to play a lot faster this time. It's 132 beats per minute and we're doing 16th notes, so it's quite a bit faster. I'll talk about how to get that in a minute. The other thing is, there's a new technique, vibrato on a string bend, which we'll talk about as well. The first thing is vibrato on a string bend. So we're going to take our box here at G, 15th fret, and the note that we're going to bend is our minor 7th, F, up a whole step to reach the pitch of this note here. Now, the first quarter note is just a bend, like that, fast bend. Now, there's a lot of different ways to bend the strings, and we're going to look at them all. But for now, work on, this is what I call a quick bend, meaning you hear the bend up, but you don't hear much of it. You just go right to the pitch, right away. So that's what this is. Then we hit it again, and this time we add vibrato. And the vibrato is going to be where you hit pitch, and then you release it just a little, and then push it back up, release it, push it back up, over and over, like this. Now, that's a pretty difficult technique to get down, to get it smooth. And it's important that you work on getting the motions right and you get it smooth first. It's also nice to be able to control how wide you want. If you want a narrow, fast vibrato, or you want a wide vibrato, slow, or wide and fast, they all give different kinds of feels. And ideally, you want the control to be able to do whatever kind of vibrato you feel like the music is calling for. This is a fairly wide vibrato. Not exceptionally wide, but reasonably wide and not exceptionally fast. So here's how you want to practice that. First of all, work on it as separate bends and releases. Try like 3 at a time. Then add 4. So I'm just adding more and more bends, but don't do it so fast that you lose control. You know, do it, if you have to do it this slow, that's okay. Also, you can try it narrow or wide. So try different kinds of bending and then put it into the lick. So here's the lick. Notice at the end, that note is played without a bend, vibrato on an unbent note. So that's the F, flat 7. And then we have a repeating 16th note figure. Here's the notes. Those are the 4 notes. It's picked downstroke, then hammer, pull, upstroke. And then when you repeat it, let's talk about that a little bit, because that actually is pretty quick and you have to work up your speed. So, I mean, if you're at a point where you can do it, great. But, you know, if you have to work on that a little bit, here's a principle that I want you to understand. When you're playing any repeating figure or a longer run or something, there is never an even level of difficulty through every note of the passage. In other words, some of the notes are going to be easier and some of them are going to be more difficult. And as you speed it up, the ones that are more difficult are going to create glitches in your playing. Those are the points where the line is going to break. Okay, so don't practice and do the parts that are easy and think, okay, well, I want to get it faster, right? Let's do those easy parts. I'll go ahead and speed them up. Because what will happen is you'll speed those up, but the glitches will remain. Instead, what you want to do is you want to slow it down to the speed at which you can play the slowest parts without a glitch. Okay, so that could be, for example, the glitch is probably going to be here between the upstroke, the fourth note, and then the beginning of the figure again, because you have to synchronize the two hands together, and that's harder than just doing hammer pull. So there's a tendency, if you just followed the natural inclination of pushing everything up, you probably end up doing something like this, because you can get faster notes, but they're not even. So what I want you to do is slow it down so that you can actually concentrate on and work on the glitch point, or the difficult point, and that's what we want to work on speeding up. So in speed mechanics, I talked about this principle of practicing in bursts, which is intentionally inserting little pauses so that you can kind of mentally focus on something and then allow yourself a moment to regroup, and that'll allow you to play the part that you focus on faster because of the pause, and then you can also come back and then eliminate the pause and then use the speed you've got to work on bringing the whole thing faster. That's a technique or an approach to being able to speed things up as a way of breaking them apart. So here, what you might do if you wanted to apply that and develop more speed is I'd pick down, hammer, pull, up, down. So in other words, I'd play through the glitch point and then pause. And that's going to allow me to ignore that. That's going to allow me to be able to get the speed up with those pauses, and then I can work on stringing it together. So another thing is, you're not limited just to doing it right here. Okay? How about this? This is the same mechanic on a different string pair. So practice it on that one, practice down here too. And then string those together. Now of course, as you start traveling across string pairs, it's probably going to slow you down because it's a little more difficult and you have to be more accurate about where you're landing. You can also work on them in multiples like this. So there's a lot to work on there. A couple of ideas of how you can build up your speed without kind of creating a rut and just doing the same thing over and over, because any exercise, you got to repeat for a while, but after you repeat it for a long time, it starts to, you start to mentally zone out, and at that point, you're really not gaining much from that exercise anymore. You have to find creative ways of keeping your mind engaged, and moving it around is one way to do that. Then, at the ending of that first phrase, we have a couple of oblique bends, like this. Make sure that you get your bend up to pitch and hold it. So put all that together. So there's phrase one. Practice it, take the tempo down. It's good to play with a metronome and get a sense of where you are sometimes, but you don't want to use it all the time. Sometimes it's good just to kind of focus on what your fingers are doing. You have to get it under your fingers first before you worry too much about the timing. But after you get it under your fingers, do worry about the timing. Make sure you get your metronome out and keep it all even. Another thing I want to say about phrases is one of the things that will make it sound amateurish is chopping the ends of phrases off prematurely. So in other words, if I played like this, if I clip it like that, because I'm thinking of the next place I'm going to go, which is a common thing, it doesn't sound as good. It doesn't flow as well. So what you want to do is make sure that you allow each phrase to fill its own space, and then, you know, be looking at where you're going to go next, but be aware that you need to not clip it off too soon or it's not going to sound good. The next line. Okay, so for that one in particular, I want to look at this. That's an 8th note and 2 16th notes. So it's the Gallop rhythm. And as you do that, notice it's the same pattern as the cliche that we used in the first solo, but instead of straight 8th notes, which is what we did there, now we have this Gallop rhythm. So we got to do down, down, up in the picking, and that involves some cross-string picking mechanics, a little foreshadowing of things to come. The third phrase introduces a new rhythmic figure. And it's this pattern. Down, down, up, which is the same Gallop figure, but now we've inserted a hammer-on in between them. So there's 4 notes in the 16th note beat. Well, 4 notes in the group of 16th notes within that beat, like that. So you can see there's a motif in action there, and we're coming back and forth to it. It's a good way of building melodic lines. And then the fourth phrase is the final climax of the solo here. So I'm going to be in the low extension off the bottom of this box 1 here, like this. And I'm going to start on the F, flat 7. And I'm going to play downstroke, hammer, and then down up with a palm mute. So to do the palm mutes there, I generally don't think of it like I have to palm mute that note. What I tend to do is I have a palm muted position as my standard how I hold the guitar, because you're going to hold the strings quiet, right? And then I lift for the notes that I don't want palm muted. So what I'm doing is I'm lifting here, here. Okay, so we're going across the strings back and forth. And then our final run. And that's all there is to it. Now notice that at the end, it's pretty quick, but it's also synchronization. All downstrokes and then hammer-ons are synchronized in between. So make sure that's all smooth. And notice at the very end, I change from this. That's a group of 4, like the same mechanic that we did at the beginning in phrase 1. But then I add this mechanic. And to switch from one to the other requires that third finger to roll without a break. So